replacing the factory intake with an aftermarket K&N Typhoon series intake. Got a good deal off Craigslist for it, so that's what's going on the car. Then after that, I'm going to be doing a secondary air pump delete. I'm going to essentially leave the one pump with the actual sensor in it that's plugged in. I'm going to leave it plugged in the car. I'm going to remove the full air pump, and I'm going to remove the other secondary air pump, pull all of that out. In order to do that, I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit. I'm going to pull off the intercooler, the diverter valve, and move some of this stuff out of the way, and then essentially just pry the pumps out that I need out and put a block off plate instead of trying to go under the intake manifold. And I can't remove the up pipe and down pipe, it would be a nightmare. I'm going to block it right here right in front of the driver's side. There's a video that I saw that essentially showed me how to do this. I'll make sure I link it in the comments. As well as I'm going to have to get under the car and put a block off plate down there. And then we should be good. So I'm going to get started on that now. The block off plate, I'm not going to walk you through every step of this. This is pretty simple. I mean, this stuff is going to be undoing a couple of bolts and a couple of nuts and taking off the air sensor here, pulling everything out, bolting it back in. And as far as that stuff goes, it's kind of cheating. There's no straightforward way, so I'm just going to be kind of wiggling things around and breaking things until I get to where I need to be. So, let's get started. that's it. That's the intake in. Next up, I'm going to start working on getting the secondary air stuff out. I'll capture as much of that as I can. Got the full intake installed, but I don't have a ton of space or a battery, so I'll probably do little bits. I'll probably get me, blasting the bolts off, just work on getting everything apart, maybe getting these out and then getting everything back together. So that's the intake. Let's move on to that stuff. Alright, so after working at this for a while, what I've done is remove the secondary air pump. There's two valves. I have block-off plates for both. What I actually ended up having to do was the bolt. This has been done before by someone else. So the bolt for one valve that sits right here under where the front of the intercooler would be wasn't the factory bolt, wasn't the right bolt, and was already corroded and disgusting, so it isn't coming out without pulling the entire intake manifold off, which I did research. It involves pulling all the accessories off, so We're talking intake, we're talking AC, we're talking the entire cert belt. Everything has to come off to get all that stuff off. So I'm not doing that. So what I did was, with the one valve that has the barometric pressure sensor in it, I tried to separate it. It wasn't going to come easy, so I just left that be, plugged it back in, and unhooked the hose that essentially goes into the motor and put a block-off plate on that. I got different bolts, so I can just thread it right to the front of it. Should be fine, no problems there. The other valve that I can't get off because of the bad bolt, what I've actually done is taken a piece of hose here, and on one end I've put solid metal pipe blocking and a hose clamp and clamped it down, and on the other end I put it back to where the valve would be fed and clamped that down. It's not a great way to do it, but at this point that valve is unplugged anyway. I don't see any issue here. It's going to block the airway, and previously, by the way, all this stuff was soaked with water. It was all corroded. Anything that was being sucked in there was not great anyways. So I'll take it over what was there. It's good enough to delete it, good enough to call it. So I'm going to slap the intercooler back on this and hopefully be done for the evening. We'll see how it runs after. You mess with things like the diverter valve here, so we'll see how it runs. We'll see if I have other stuff to iron out, but we'll give it a go. Scary part. That's it. She seems to run, so I didn't screw it up too bad. It has a slight misfire, has had a slight misfire since I got it. Haven't worked on it yet because it still runs pretty great. It's only the occasional at idle thing. It might have that. There could be a leak in evap. I could feel like just a very, very slight miss. So we'll see. I want to get it down. I want to get it moving. I want to get it under load and kind of feel out what it's going to have. Clear the codes, see what comes back, take a look at that. But quite the project. I mean, I wish if it had factory bolts in it, I think I could have done a lot cleaner job, but that's kind of part of doing this in a garage, is that redneck ingenuity. 5 feet or 5 miles an hour, I mean, it works. Everything seems blocked, everything seems fine for now. So, get it back on the ground and get it moving. All right, that is the secondary air pump, the intake, and the exhaust finished. I took a break overnight. I was pretty beat. Figured I'd finish recording in the morning. Things I kind of picked up, you know, these bolts are original. I had to sawzall the exhaust off, so it was kind of a pain. Stripped one of the bolts. I got 3 of the 4 exhaust bolts out, but did end up having to cut it, which is kind of a bummer in case you ever wanted to go back to factory. It wouldn't be easy, but it is what it is. The intake, obviously, easy, straightforward. Cut a handful of bolts, throw the new one in, bolt it back in. The secondary air pump. Real pain, real pain. You can sneak it out without taking the intake manifold off. I was not able to do that because it's already been done once, and the bolt that was put essentially under the intake manifold that you can get you know, like a pivoting head in there and loosen that up. It was the wrong bolt and it was already stripped, so there was no, you know, I tried to grab it a bunch of different ways, wasn't happening. So what I did was I used a block-off plate on one side, the side that's easy to access, the driver's side, and for the passenger side, where I could sneak the one valve that you take out that doesn't have a barometric pressure sensor, I left it in, and actually it's unplugged like it's supposed to be, but what I did was I cut some of the tubing similar to this and created a block-off tube for it. So it's not plugged in, and even if there were some way that it was able to get pressurized, that it wouldn't be feeding anything into the motor. And I do think it's interesting, I haven't seen anybody on the forums really doing it. I don't know why people insist on block-off plates. If you don't care, you know, it's under your intake manifold, or excuse me, it's under your intercooler. If you don't really care what that looks like, why not just, you know, pull out the secondary air pump, but don't do any block-off plates. Just leave the valves there and do, you know, essentially plugs like I did. I don't know, I'm sure somebody in the comments will let me know. But it could definitely save you time, take it from, you know, a 6-hour struggle of a job, you know, down to a 45-minute job. So, and that's not, you know, none of that's the right way to do it. If you want to do block-off plates the correct way, you pull the intake manifold to get the one off, and you're going to pull your exhaust manifold and get under the turbo and all that stuff. It wasn't worth it for me, so they're blocked off effectively now, so we'll see. No extra codes, runs and drives great, and I also had it out for an alignment the same morning that I did the exhaust. So we've got the alignment done here, exhaust, intake, and air pump delete. Coming up, I've already ordered the floor mats, the short shifter, and a funnel extra there. I have an appointment for the tune, which will tune out the secondary air pump. This is a check engine light since I got it, so we can finally get that check engine light turned off, and I'm going to take it to a shop that has, it's not the shop I normally go to, it's a main chain shop that has a bunch of Subaru friends there, so I will use that shop to get an inspection. And we'll be good to go. It'll be pretty much a daily driver at this point. I love the way it's situated. I love the way it drives. I'm going to do a final drive video when I'm done with it. But so far, so good. It's been really great to me. The only other thing besides that is the HIDs. I have to actually, I'm going to pull it apart now real quick and take a look at the right bulb. It's an H7, but there's a couple different options. So take a quick look at that, and we'll get the HIDs, the inspection, probably have to aim the headlights, and be good to go. All right.
The car is almost where I want it, just the interior stuff left to do. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give me a like and subscribe.